Hi, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to another Sunday morning at Shay Songtsen Gampo on YouTube. Sorry, just turning off my phone. So, my name is Palmo. I'm a Buddhist nun and the director of Songtsen Gampo Buddhist Center in Lakewood, which is a suburb of Cleveland. Hopefully soon we'll be able to meet there again once everyone gets their vaccinations, but for now, doing everything online. So today we are going to be discussing rebirth. I had rebirth and renewal, but mostly just rebirth, but you'll get the point. Okay, so before we begin, let's establish, no, actually, let's just get settled first, okay? So in your chair or wherever you are, and relax, getting the mind and body together in the same place, which can be difficult sometimes, but just take some breaths and kind of get centered. Then we want to develop our bodhicitta motivation. Bodhicitta being the wish to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. That is the whole purpose of this path, is to awaken or to, let's say, recognize, unveil our innate Buddha nature, our own enlightened qualities, not only for ourselves, but so that we can benefit others to the maximum degree. So please just take a moment to generate that motivation for the time we'll be spending together this morning. Then we also think about our teachers, our very, very precious teachers, Jigme Khyentse Rinpoche, Tulku Pema Wangyo Rinpoche, and Taklung Mato Rinpoche, all of whom have selflessly given of themselves to help others along the path, taking and maintaining their bodhisattva vow. Without them and teachers like them, I doubt very much that the Dharma would exist at all in our day. So we're very, very grateful to them and feel a lot of respect for their work and their level of realization. And we ask for their blessing so we can understand the teachings and put them into practice as best as we can. Okay, so as I said, today we are talking about rebirth. To those who are unfamiliar with the teachings, sometimes rebirth, or it's called, oftentimes people refer to it as reincarnation, can seem like, some kind of myth or fairy tale or some sort of paranormal story. When I was a kid, there was some movie, I think Audrey Rose or something like that, where this girl relives her death from the previous life, and in reliving her death, she dies. Really strange. And today, on streaming media, there's a show called The Ghost in My Child, which is about kids just remembering their past lives. But because we as a culture are not really familiar with this concept, and we do tend to think of it in the way I just described, we think like that. We think it's something mysterious, something non-existent, or some kind of paranormal event. But in fact, there's really nothing mysterious about it, okay? It's just a matter of continuation. It's just a matter of cause and effect, actually. And I'll talk more about that as we go on. But as we do approach this topic, and since it can be difficult for Westerners to accept it, I would say don't accept it. Don't accept it as the Buddha taught. As the Buddha taught, comma, don't accept it just because he taught it, just because he said it, or just because, it's in a book or any of these other things, At the same time, don't discount it out of hand either, okay? There's so much that we don't understand as human beings. There's so much that is not apparent to us at the moment. So rather than accepting it blindly or rejecting it blindly, just leave your mind open to the possibility. So there's something that I used to do at the beginning of this path when I found subjects like reincarnation or various other subjects kind of strange or difficult to understand or difficult to believe. I just said I neither believe it nor disbelieve it at this point. And I continue to study it. I continue to be open to the possibility, ask my own questions, and so forth. So that's what I would suggest that you do if this is something that seems foreign or hard to believe for you, okay? So I'm going to go through some different teachings, beginning with Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, making the distinction between the words reincarnation and rebirth. May sound like the same thing, but from a Buddhist point of view, they're actually different, okay? And he says here, the idea of reincarnation is that a solid living quality is being passed on to the next being. It is the idea that some solid substance is being passed on. But from Buddhist point of view, it's more of a rebirth, okay? In a sense, we're like a running stream. And you'll see this. So I'm reading from him and also making my own commentary, but we're like a running stream. And you hear this a lot in Buddhist teachings. Even the words for our consciousness, okay, or our mind is called mind stream or stream of consciousness, okay? And here Rinpoche explains further. You could say such and such a river, such and such a stream. It has a name. But if you examine it carefully, that river you named 300 years ago isn't there at all, right? It's completely different, changing, passing all the time. It is transforming from one aspect to another. That complete transformation makes it possible to take rebirth. It is the change which is important in terms of rebirth, rather than one thing, continuing, okay? He says, the ultimate idea of rebirth is not purely the idea of physical birth and death. Physical birth and death are very crude examples of it. Actually, rebirth takes place every moment, every instant. Every instant is death. Every instant is birth. It is a changing process. There's nothing you can grasp onto. Everything is changing. Okay. So let's look at that for a minute. So, yes, the physical death of the body, the, mind separating from it, and then taking another birth, for lack of better words, is a big change. Okay, we see that as sort of a big drop-off, right? Something extreme, an extreme change. But it's really not, okay? It's really just a continuation of what has already been happening from the moment we were born, or actually from the moment we were conceived, until the moment the mind separates from the physical body, okay? As he says here, we're every instant is death, every instant is birth, right? So right now it's 10:40, okay, and we're approaching the death of the morning and the birth of the afternoon. Okay, it's these kind of, moment by moment changes. If we look at the body, okay, we have this body which is aging every millisecond, right? We see, like, we notice the big changes, right? We look at a photo of ourselves from 10 years ago or 20 years ago or whatever, and we see, oh my gosh, I didn't have these wrinkles on my face, okay, or this, wrinkles in my neck, or I didn't have gray hair, or whatever it is, right? I was thinner, I was fatter, whatever. We see those changes, but because the changes from day to day are so minute, we don't notice them, but we should really pay attention to that. Practicing being aware of these small changes and dealing with the small changes will really help to avoid suffering in the future for the big changes, like, losing our job, losing a loved one, and up to losing our own life. We can practice for that, right? So, one thing I often say, and I will hold to it because it's such a easy practice and it's a daily practice. Okay. When you brush your teeth in the morning, notice that when you brush your teeth at night, you are 10, 12, however many hours, 14 hours older. Okay. And your toothbrush is a little more worn down, and your gums are a little more worn down, and so forth and so on, okay? And the face you see in the mirror at night is not the same face you saw in the morning, okay? So easy to contemplate that. And it's a good practice because hopefully it's something that occurs every day, okay? So this process of changing, this process of becoming another being, is a day-to-day process. And it's not just the body, of course, it's the mind also. Every time we change our mind about something, every time we learn something, okay, every time we, develop a new skill, that's a rebirth. Okay, we're no longer the same person. We no longer have the same mind we did before we learned that thing or developed that skill, or forgot something for that matter. Okay. So another thing that the teachers talk about is like, from one life to the next, we're not the same, but we're not really different either, which is, can sound like one of those Buddhist paradoxes that people are so fond of. Okay. So what does that mean? Well, think of yourself when you were, 7 years old. Okay. You can't say that you're the same as you were when you were 7, right? Otherwise, you would still be able to fit into those cute little Mary Janes, okay, and your little socks, and you would have the same wants, the same desires, the same thoughts, the same capabilities you had at 7 instead of whatever age you are now, okay? At the same time, you can't say that you're completely different from the 7-year-old you, because without that 7-year-old you, there's no 40-year-old you or however old you are. See what I mean? So this is the same. This is the similar process of rebirth, okay? We're not the same from previous life to this life to the next life. At the same time, let's just take 3 lives as an example, are dependent. Those 3 lives are dependent one upon the other. There's a connection there, but it's not like what the Christian idea of a soul going from one life to the next, because that is what Rinpoche refers to here, that continuous, solid, inherently existent thing moving from one life to the next. Okay, it's a process. It's a stream, connected but not the same. Okay. So there's this, I can't remember what the website is right now. Maybe I can pull it up. Hold on. While I'm doing this, if you don't have the closing prayers, there's a link in the description box, so you can open or download that now while I'm trying to find out what this site is. Okay, this is from a site called learnreligions.com. And there's this author, the author of these articles called Barbara O'Brien. She's quite good. She makes some errors in this particular writing, but in general, she's very good. Anyway, so this is some of what she has to say. So here she talks about, actually, let's cover this thing first. So from the Buddhist standpoint, we have this, can't think of a word, thing called non-self, okay? We say the self does not exist, or rather, it's actually, that's a misunderstanding that is often put forward, so I'm sorry for perpetuating that. We don't say that the self does not exist, that we do not exist, okay? What we say is we do not exist in the way that we perceive ourselves, okay? Meaning we are not, just like I said earlier, this solid, permanently existent, eternal, kind of thing moving through time. But that's how we perceive ourselves, right? We say, I am 58, or I am an American, or I am whatever, right? And I like this, and I don't like that, right? And this notion of I, we don't question, okay? And the Buddhist teachings really encourage us, please question that, because it's not how you think it is, okay? So let's talk about this so-called I, because we have to address that if we're going to talk about rebirth, okay? So this is from Barbara's article, and so what is the self, right? So the Buddha said, "O Bhikshu, every moment you are born, decay, and die," just like what I was talking about earlier. Suffering and dissatisfaction occur when we cling to the desire for an unchanging and permanent self that is impossible and illusory. And release from that suffering requires no longer clinging to that illusion. All right? Buddha taught that all phenomena, including beings, are in a constant state of flux, always changing, always becoming, always dying. And that refusal to accept that truth, especially the illusion of ego, the I, right, leads to suffering. Pardon me. So the Dalai Lama, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, says, in the Buddhist view, the self or the person is understood in terms of a dynamic, interdependent relationship of both mental and physical attributes. Sense of self is simply a mental construct, right? A mere label given to this cluster of dependently arising. Whoever translates Dalai Lama's books and writings can be a little bit, anyway, I'll read this, but you'll see what I mean. A mere label given to this cluster of dependently arising mental and physical events in dependence on their continuity. I'm laughing because it's just like, it could really be written in a much more simple way, but anyway. So cluster of dependently arising mental and physical events. Okay, so what that means is each physical event, each, change in our body, each change in our environment, each change in our mind doesn't happen just like that. Okay, it's dependent upon something else. There's a cause, right? Cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect, all the time. There isn't something that just poof arises. The notion, continuing with the Dalai Lama, The notion that there is a connection between this life and the events of both our previous existence and our future existence follows from the Buddhist understanding of the natural law of cause and effect. For example, although we can speak of yesterday's weather and today's weather as distinct, today's weather is inextricably linked with the weather patterns of yesterday. And it's continuous. This is me talking now. It's continuous, right? You can't just say, oh, yesterday's weather stopped when I went to sleep, and today's weather started when I woke up. Okay? There's this weather is continuing in an unbroken chain. Okay? For example, now back to the Dalai Lama. For example, although I said that already, even at the bodily level, in case of our physical health, for example, we know that events in the past affect the present, and those of the present, the future. So this me again. So, if we, for example, we really decide that we're going to start eating right and exercising, let's say that, right? Let's say that's the cause, okay? And the effect is we're healthier, right? We have more energy, we've lost some weight, this kind of stuff, okay? Cause and effect, right? So those are linked. And then we decide, for whatever reason, we happen upon a situation where we can't do those things. And then we get sick, okay? Back to the Dalai Lama. Similarly, in the realm of consciousness, the Buddhist view is that there is also this same causal continuum, causal continuum between the events of the past, present, and future. Okay. So since we just talked about that, I want to go to the idea of karma. Okay. So karma, well, the word karma, it means actually action. Okay. But the way that it's used today, even in the Buddhist world, refers to that whole process, karmic cause and the fruit of karma. Okay. Karma is not fate. It's really important to understand. So now I'm relying on Barbara's article. But so karma is not fate, but simple action and reaction. Okay. Cause and effect. That's it. And that makes perfect, actually logical sense if you think about it and you examine it. Okay. If you want to really have an not a complete, but a more expanded understanding of that, I do have a video on karma on this channel, so you can have a look at that. And even that is just a drop in the ocean of all the teachings on karma. But anyway, going back to Barbara, she says, and this is true, of course, many schools of Buddhism emphasize a meditation practice that enables an intimate realization of the illusion of self, leading ultimately to liberation from that illusion. So once again, meditation in Buddhism is extremely important. It's not just, being Zen or learning to relax or, lowering our blood pressure or something like that. Meditation is essential to progress on the path. Okay. So just to have these ideas floating around our brain or, having some kind of intellectual understanding of these ideas, it's great. It's better than not having it, but it's certainly not enough, right? When we meditate, and there are so many different types of meditation, we get a much deeper understanding, a sort of visceral experience of that. So meditation is super important. All right. So what is reborn? So going back again. So we have this, wait, let me go back to karma again for 1 second. So if we're talking about rebirth, it is our karma that determines what kind of rebirth we have, okay? And only that. And again, that karma is nothing more than cause and effect, cause and effect. We can see cause and effect in the body, in the physical environment, like climate change, for example, the cause being this, the effect being that, all right? It also holds for our actions of body, speech, and mind. Skillful acts of body, speech, and mind result in happiness for ourselves. Unskillful acts of body, speech, and mind result in suffering. Okay. Skillful actually is associated with virtuous or positive. Unskillful is associated with unvirtuous or negative. Now, why am I using the word skillful and unskillful rather than good and bad? Okay. The reason for that is because there really isn't a judgment aspect in karma. It's hard for us to not fall into that, especially if we're raised in a Judeo-Christian tradition. But nonetheless, it is that. It isn't, someone deciding for us. It's just cause and effect. That's it. So anyway, like I said, if you want to learn more about that, check out that video, and also, do your own reading. So again, if we say, as we mentioned earlier, that there isn't a self as we conceive of it, yet there is this continuum, and we do use the language, in the past life I might have been this, in the future life maybe I'll be that, or born like that. But that's just because there just aren't the words, in our language, and it becomes very awkward if we want to speak very precisely about that, right? Like imagine saying, even for our day-to-day life, instead of saying, I like apples, we would have to say, this particular continuum of consciousness, which, doesn't inherently exist, feels an illusory desire for red fruit that also doesn't, like, I want an apple. Okay. So that's why we have to use this kind of conventional, imprecise language. So what is reborn? If the self doesn't exist and there isn't a solid, inherently existent thing that moves from one life to the next, what's reborn? So this, I believe he's Zen teacher, John Dido-Lori, says, there's no question that when this physical body is no longer capable of functioning, the energies within it, the atoms and molecules it is made up of, don't die with it. Okay, they take on another form, another shape. You can call that another life, but as there is no permanent, unchanging substance, nothing passes from one moment to the next. Quite obviously, he says, nothing permanent or unchanging can pass or transmigrate from one life to the next. Being born and dying continues unbroken, but changes every moment. Okay, so this is something that is really worth considering, right? And an example that I like to point out is very much related to what John Dido-Lori just said there. Okay, and that is that if you look at the physical world, okay, let's say that a tree is knocked over in a storm, okay. First of all, that tree doesn't just automatically wither up into ash, like the Wicked Witch of the West or something, right? That tree, first of all, stays living to an extent for quite some time. The leaves remain green, the bark looks nice and fresh, and so forth, okay? Then it transforms into something else, right? As it decays, it becomes a home for all kinds of insects, bacteria, mushrooms, God knows what else, okay? And over time, yes, it just crumbles and it becomes part of the soil. Okay? It doesn't just disappear. So if that holds for the physical world, why would the consciousness be any different, right? We were born with this, we have it throughout our lives, and then what? When the body dies, it just poof disappears into the sky. It's not logical. It just doesn't make any sense. Okay. So that's why I say, like, to really at least try to keep the mind open to this idea, because really it's very, very logical. I, of course, with the time constraints, I'm not able to give you, a detailed explanation of all that. But I really encourage you to examine it for yourself, to ask all the questions until you're satisfied with the answer. Either way, right? You might decide after studying it, this is BS, I don't buy this. Or you might decide, yeah, it really makes sense, up to you, okay? I do recommend some books on this. Of course, Buddhist teachings on this are very interesting, but even non-Buddhist teachings are quite fascinating. There's a book by Ian Stevenson called 20 Cases Suggestive of Reincarnation. He uses the word reincarnation, okay? And I don't know what he was. I think maybe a sociologist or something. He wasn't Buddhist. He had no skin in the game. Or he wasn't trying to convince anybody of anything. He was just interested in this topic. And he went around the world, studying various people who claimed to have remembered their previous lives, talking to them, examining the situation, and so forth. It's very, very interesting. And there's another one. Let me see if I have it written here. Oh, yeah. Return to Life. Extraordinary Cases of Children Who Remember Past Lives. And that's by Jim Tucker. I will put these in the description box after this video. And of course, the Tibetan book of Living and Dying by Sogyal Rinpoche. And there's a lot of other books to look at on this, but those three are quite good. And then there's this great movie. I don't think we watched it yet in our movie night. We have movie night the last Friday of every month, typically. But there's a movie called Kundun, K-U-N as in Nancy, D-U-N, right? And this movie, directed by Martin Scorsese, I think, is about the life of the Dalai Lama. It's very interesting. So if you haven't seen that movie, I recommend it. It streams somewhere or other. I don't remember. Anyway, okay. So that is Rebirth in brief, very, very brief. And now we'll do some meditation. Okay. So for this meditation, since I never really know who's watching the video at any given time, hang on, we have a question. Have you ever heard of panpsychism? It is Western philosophy that tries to explain the phenomenon of consciousness that suggests consciousness is a natural law of the universe. No, actually, I haven't heard of that. And from a Buddhist point of view, I don't think that would hold water. But without reading more about it, I couldn't really say at this point. Okay, so let's do some meditation. Oops. Yeah. It could. I don't know, Alex. He says, I can't help thinking that rebirth fits into that easily. Probably, but I can't say until I would learn more about that. All right, so now we're going to do some meditation. So if you're in a chair, just put your feet flat on the floor. If you're on the floor, cross your legs in whatever way is comfortable for you. Okay, all the other instructions are the same. So your hands should be palms down on your knees, palms up like that in your lap, or with your fingers on top of each other and your thumbs touching like you're holding a goose egg. Okay, whichever is most comfortable for you. And it can be your thighs if your arms aren't long enough. your arms should be relaxed, so you're not holding them out, you're not squeezing them in, just relax. Your back needs to be straight, your spine should be straight. This is the most important thing no matter what else, okay? So just straighten your back, okay? Not tense like you're in the army, okay? Just straight. So you're not slouching and you're not doing that. So the other thing they say is your shoulders should be back a little bit. So I think that means more like just not unconsciously, slouching them like that. So the way that I do that is I just roll my shoulders back one time. And I mean, if you want to do it a few times, of course you can. But you'll see as soon as you do that, the chest kind of opens up and your posture improves. Back of the neck is also straight. So chin's going to be tucked in just a little bit, just so that your head is, straight. So you're not doing this, you're not doing that. Just back of the neck straight, chin tucked in. Mouth is closed but relaxed, tongue resting on the roof of the mouth, breathing through the nose. The eyes are open, looking downward a little bit. So like half open or half closed, depending, I guess, if you're a pessimist or an optimist. But anyway, so the way to do that is just to look straight ahead and then lower your eyes about halfway. And that's a good lowered, relaxed gaze. So why do we hold the body like this? Because it supports the mind in meditation. That's why. All right. So we're actually going to do 2 types of meditation, and I'll just walk you through it, so don't worry about it. All right. So we're holding the body like this. The first one we're going to do is just mindfulness of breathing, which you may have heard of, which is basic meditation, a foundational meditation practice, without which none of the other meditations are really going to work because we're going to be constantly distracted. Okay. So we're holding the body in this position because it supports the mind in meditation. We bring our awareness to the sensation of the breath coming in and out of the nose. Okay. So take a moment to do that before we actually start the meditation. Be aware of the sensation of the breath coming in and out of the nose. Okay, so now you know what that sensation is. What we're aiming to do in this meditation is keep a continual awareness of that sensation. Meanwhile, we're just letting the thoughts come and go without engaging in them. That's it. Okay. Simple, but not easy. Okay. As soon as you realize your mind has gotten distracted, simply bring it back without judgment, without tension. Just, supposed to be focusing on the breath. Let's do that. Okay. That's it. That's the practice. All right. So ring the gong to start. And then before we end the session, we'll do a few minutes of the other kind of meditation I want to do, okay? And then I'll ring the gong to end the session. Okay, here we go. Now you can begin to count the breaths if you like, counting either every in-breath or every out-breath, up to a total of 10 breaths. Counting helps us to realize more quickly when we've been distracted, typically. If you get lost in the middle, no problem. Just come back, start again at 1. If you manage to get to 10, again, no big deal. Come back, start again at 1. If you go beyond 10, same thing. Come back, start again at 1. So please begin that now if you like. Okay, now we're going to move on to watching the thoughts instead of watching the breath without getting involved in them. So, what we want to be noticing is how much they change. Okay, just watch the flow of your thoughts, one thought arising, dwelling, naturally disappearing, being replaced by another thought, and another thought, and another thought. Just observe that process. So please begin that now. If it's easier for you to close your eyes during this practice, please go ahead and do that. Okay, so now we will do the closing prayers. So pull them up if they're not already pulled up. So this prayer to Parna Shabadi, she is an emanation of Tara, who's a female Buddha, who kind of fights disease. So Rinpoche asked us to do this prayer to help quell the pandemic. So we'll do all the prayers in English today. Usually we do the long life prayers in Tibetan, but anyway. Lady, Holy One, enlightened and compassionate, appear now as the leaf-clad goddess, healer of disease. Do not turn away, but in compassion take myself and all beings of this age of 5 degenerations. Perform your deeds of soothing, purging, and cauterizing all the pains of illness, plagues, and pestilence. Then we say the mantra 3 times. Om Pishatsi Panashabari Sawatsola Prashamanaye Soha. Om Pishatsi Panashabari Sawatsola Prashamanaye Soha. Om Pishatsi Panashabari Sawatsola Prashamanaye Soha. Now the prayer for the long life of the Dalai Lama. In the celestial realm encircled by snow peaks, you are the source of every happiness and benefit. Tenzin Gyatso Avalokiteshvara himself. May your lotus feet remain firm for 100 eons. And then Jigme Khyentse Rinpoche. Om Swasti, through the blessings of the fearless Jigme, infinite radiant long life deities, may the prophesied display of Khyentse, the supreme powerful one, Nuden, be firm in health and life like the indestructible Vajra, and may his beneficial activity for the teachings and beings reach its ultimate extent. Now, Tuku Pema Wangyo Rinpoche. Om Swasti, through dependent causation and the blessings of the infinity of long life deities, may Pema Wangyo, prophesied magical emanation of the Taklan Sutro, be firm in body, speech, and mind like the king of the sounding drum, Amitabha, and may the great waves of his wishes for the teachings and beings spread out to their ultimate extent. Now for the long life of the teachers in general. We pray for the good health of the lamas. We pray for their precious lives to be long. We pray for their activities to spread and increase. May we be blessed, never depart from them. Now this is the next prayer is a dedication of merit. By this merit, may all attain omniscience, may defeat the enemy, wrongdoing. From the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of cyclic existence, may I free all beings. May bodhicitta, precious and sublime, arise where it has not yet come to be, and where it has arisen, may it never fail, but grow and flourish ever more and more. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain and dispel the miseries of the world. Ever absorbed in the display of divine forms and primordial awareness, appearance, sound, and perception in the state of divinities, mantras, and dharmakaya, may I, inseparable from the practice of the profound and secret great yoga, attain within the essence of mind the state of one taste. Now we say the 100-syllable mantra of Vajrasattva, which is a purification mantra. I'll go slowly in case you guys aren't familiar. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopa Tishta Drito Me Bhava Sutokayo Me Bhava Supokayo Me Bhava Anurakto Me Bhava Sawasiddhi Me Prayatsa Sawakama Sutsa Me Chitam Shriyam Kuruhum Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sawatata Gata Vajrama Me Munsa Padri Bhava Mahasamaya Sattva. Okay, so before we close out, just a couple announcements, not much. April 11th, I think next Sunday. Yes, next Sunday is a Buddha Day, Shakyamuni Buddha Day. So we will be doing the Buddha Sadhana. But not here. It's going to be on Zoom. So look at our website on the events page and you'll find the Zoom link there. It will be from 1 to 1:30 on that Sunday. If you're not already signed up for the newsletter, please do so. Link below. There will be new classes eventually. There's going to be some seminars, weekend retreats, and so forth. So do sign up for that newsletter because you'll be the first to know about any of that if you sign up. If you would like to make a donation, we always appreciate that. Even though we're not at the physical center, we still have to pay all the same bills: rent, heat, insurance, all the rest of it. So if you can help out, even with a couple bucks, that would be really, really helpful. All right. So thank you so much for joining me this morning. I hope it was helpful for you, and I hope to see you soon. Okay. Bye-bye. Bye, everybody. Have a good day.